Children's magazines and interwar fronts, competition, change, and comics. My talk looks at the three French children's magazines you see here, one for boys, two for girls. I will start with a brief summary of the context. Children's magazines were part of a broader commercialization of children's literature, propelled by technological developments, cheaper printing plates, and possibilities to reproduce color. Children's publishing had become a profitable enterprise. This profitability was in part reinforced by the Jules Ferry laws concerning education, passed through 1881 and 1882. These ensured the secularity of schools, the complete absence of fees, and compulsory education at home or in a school for all children aged 3 to 13. Confirming their commercial viability, many of the children's magazines survived the turbulence of the First World War. Book publishers such as Larousse and Delacroix and publisher distributors such as Hachette actually thrived, cashing in on the genre of children's wartime literature. The interwar period was a time of temporary recovery and rapid change on all levels: individual, social, national, international. The US had emerged as a new world power. Fractures in Europe extended to the social fabric, challenging the old world order, shuffling the roles of different social classes. A rising middle class, a burgeoning consumer culture, and a more emancipated woman also contributed to the flourishing publications for different age groups. The publisher edition Montsouris, Lisette and Pierrot are newcomers to the interwar publishing scene. Montsouris began publishing Lisette in 1921 for girls. It also started another magazine for boys in 1925, Pierrot, which followed Lisette's model. An established publishing house, Montsouris was known for the family magazine Le Petit Écho de la Mode. You see here, you can see issues from January 1915 and May 1929. They capture a middle-class serenity and values that sets the tone of the Montsouris publications for adults, especially adult women. Even in wartime, we only see smiles. Montsouris was not naive, as these pictures of bliss and Christian charity might suggest. It was business savvy. Well aware that periodicals could provide distraction, comfort, together with moral education, Montsouris was riding on the wave of emerging entertainment media. It had published, already in 1919, Guignol, subtitled Cinema for the Young, see that here, and originally intended for boys. This is somewhat evident in the colorful cover from the January 1936 issue, where the curtains are drawn to reveal a scene from an adventure story involving Native Americans entitled Harsh Winter in Canada. Next to the cover, you can see a long or great film titled Father Cassu's Revenge. The film alternates between rectangular images and text. The story takes up 8 pages, some of which are in color, and ends with an entr'acte. Unfolding in color at a time when color film was not yet the norm, the back cover also imitates a stage or movie screen. The exorbitant issue price of one franc announced at both sides of the title is also the entry fee for this show. This tendency to imitate cinema through illustrated stories and comics became increasingly common in the children's magazines towards the end of the interwar period. We can talk of a kind of retromediation here. The slightly older medium of comics remediates the emerging medium of film. Both covers have ads at the other end, as you can see here, together with the back cover. The back cover ad, announcing almanacs of both Pierrot and Lisette, suggests a diversification of intended readership. While many of the advertisements in Guignol are for the Printemps collection of adventures published by the same press, we also find advertisements for the Stiller collection. An advertisement in Pierrot from 1933 suggests that Guignol was intended for both boys and girls, otherwise framed quite visually as readers of Pierrot and Lisette. We have that here. This rapid excursion through Guignol, an illustrated magazine cinema imitation, captures some of the major changes discernible in publications in the interwar period. the fascination with images, and the move towards aligning boys and girls publications, whereby material for boys, adventure stories, boy protagonists, will be given preference over material for girls. The magazines, however, continue to retain certain characteristics that are connected to their publishers' commercial models and ideologies. This is evident in the contrast between Montsouris and Offenstadt. The Montsouris magazines had relatively few ads in comparison to the cheaper Offenstadt publications. Offenstadt was also quick to incorporate the changes in visual and entertainment culture while maintaining a competitive price. The Offenstadt publications offer a secular contrast to the more Catholic and bourgeois-oriented Montsouris magazines. Frequently targeted by the Catholic press and persecuted during the First World War for the German and Jewish origins of the Offenstadt brothers, whose parents had migrated to Paris from Bavaria around the mid-19th century, the Offenstadt press became the Société Parisienne d'Édition, or SPE, in 1919. The prolific and often vilified press began publishing Fillette in 1909. The same press issued L'Intrépide for boys, often subtitled Adventures, Sports, Travel, as numerous other publications also included Le Péton, initially for both children and the family. The February 1926 issue Laïci bears the subtitle Humoristic. Both family and children have been enlightened for the broadest possible readership. The cover is by one of the publisher's star artists, Louis Fortin, known for the Periodical Adventures. The covers of L'Intrépide and Fillette are also from the same year. Fillette stands out through its text-laden cover and decorative layout, a format maintained from the magazine's inception in 1909. It's only towards the end of the interwar period that the cover will be modernized. The advertisements that we find in L'Intrépide and Fillette are loudest for other Offenstadt publications, in this case for the complete illustrated works of Victor Hugo. These works are indispensable for those who want to develop their cultural capital on literature, one of the ads announces. Some gendering of the implied readers of the two magazines is discernible. Fillette includes the highly recurrent advertisement for a juvenile corset, courses for foreign languages, especially English, correspondence courses for typing, beauty creams, imitation gold jewelry, and remedies for migraines, etc. L'Intrépide contains no less than 2 advertisements on timidity, which are recurrent in other Offenstadt publications, offers cheap bikes for men, women, and children, a prominently advertised drawing course, 3 ads on hypnosis and other forms of mind control, and others on physical culture and beautiful watches. Fillette and later Lisette closely followed the model established by Lisette and Pierrot, launched in 1905 by the prominent publishing house of Henri Gautier. Its implied readers were 8 to 14-year-old girls, and it is remembered for its Bécassine stories. Illustrated stories were combined with leisure and educational activities deemed appropriate for girls. Usually this involved a lot of sewing and embroidery, taught through creating a wardrobe for a doll. The first and free issue of Lisette and Pierrot offered dolls to all its subscribers. The success of this promotional stunt, inspired by American marketing techniques, exceeded Gautier's expectations. Like other girl magazines, Fillette also offered dolls, such as Miette, advertised here. The same page also includes recipes and a basic math lesson. A new Fillette almanac is also advertised, showing 2 smiling, stylishly dressed girls, one very young and one a bit older, reading together in a very feminine interior. Fillette, known for the ESPRit Lily story since its creation in 1909, introduced other stories with girl protagonists in the interwar period. Lily, the main protagonist, grew with the readers. His stories came to an end in the early 1920s, but she was resurrected and rejuvenated in the early 1930s. The new series of girl protagonists included Les Espiègleries de Friquet, and notably 2 stories with cinema characters, often summing up their movies. You see here Shirley Temple in Les Aventures de la Petite Shirley and Baby Peggy on Baby Peggy. It also ran Les Aventures de Chien Brownie on the silent film dog actor Brownie the Wonder Dog, who appeared alongside baby Peggy. Fillette did not stop there. From November 1st, 1936, it bore the subtitle The Diary of Shirley and included and advertised additional publications and merchandise around Shirley Temple. It also announces in this November 1st issue that the newly launched Shirley Club already has 100,000 members. Sometimes Fillette also included 2 pages on young female film actors, which were heavily peppered with photos. Further, it published translations of American comics such as Batman artist Bob Kane's Peter Pup in the late 1930s and Babe Bunting. These American translations coexisted with local material based on American productions, especially movies. This is the case with Raoul Thomin's richly illustrated and colored story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, clearly inspired by the 1937 Disney animation. Thomin also drew and wrote graphic novels on Charlie Chaplin's adventures, which were also published by the SBE or Offenstadt. Around 1938 and 1939, one can also see ads for projectors in the SBE publications titled Cinema Mickey. Even though Mickey himself does not appear in the magazine, he is clearly present in spirit. The press agency Opera Mundi, established in 1928, responsible for the rights of American comics, began publishing Le Journal de Mickey in 1934. The Mickey magazine transformed the children's publishing scene, establishing itself as a formula of success based on action-packed, colorful comics, attracting both boys and girls. In contrast to the Offenstadt publications, the Montsouris magazines Pierrot, Lisette, and Guignol only briefly published runs of translated American comics such as Little Annie Rooney in Lisette and Percy Crosby's Skippy in Pierrot. I only have time to briefly introduce both magazines. So the cover of the first issue of Lisette promises the ultimate picture of happiness. A perfectly dressed little girl reading Lisette with her doll, sitting on an elaborate cushion. It recalls the advertisements we saw for the Fillette almanac a bit earlier. It also echoes the ideal situation visualized in an advertisement for Les Semaines de Suzette. This is from 1913. Less blatant and homely are the many announcements at the bottom of the cover, including a major competition, gold enamel or metal watches, and about 1,000 prizes and a doll. The column, Cosette or Chat, is signed by Marianne, who will mediate all communication between magazine and reader. She announces, "This magazine has been created for all of you girlfriends. It comes to you filled with one great wish, to be loved. Its purpose is simple, to entertain you. It has all sorts of delights, pleasant surprises, enjoyable emotions, and lots of laughter." Marianne emphasizes effective connections of friendship, emotions such as joy, and of course entertainment, but the magazine will try to do much more. It will rework but retain the educational impulses of earlier children's magazines, especially those by Christian publishers. It will also try to keep its readers up to date regarding the latest fashions and offer competitions. Pierrot, as we see here briefly, relies on a similar model of exciting and sometimes edifying stories, some fashion, jokes, fun facts, and a letter from Pierrot himself. Such direct correspondence with readers seems to be absent from Fillette and other Offenstadt magazines. Penny Tinkler highlights the complexity of girls' and women's magazines, which I think can be extended to children's magazines. She writes, and I quote, "They are the products of negotiation between publishers, editors, advertisers, and readers. Their pages harbor diversity, inconsistency, contradiction, and tension." End quote. The magazine is, as many of you have already heard, polyphonic, combining different voices, ideologies, and tensions. Marketing and advertisements coexist with the national and the foreign, especially American material. The economic and socio-political turmoil of the interwar years is not that palpable here, except perhaps in the aggressive commercialization that was necessary to guarantee the magazine's survival. The more obvious changes take place in visual innovation, propelled by the fascination with new forms of American entertainment. The Offenstadt publications were quicker to absorb these American influences and even make them their own. The extent of the changes undergone by these magazines is evident in the contrast between the title pages from the 1920s and the 1930s. Fillette, for instance, sheds the flowers that emulated Lisette de Suzette's title page. The title font is also modernized, while the pictures are more dominant and dynamic. Pierrot, the entertainer, is replaced by Sporty Pierrot. The adventure stories remain similar, but the images are more elaborate. While Lisette was slowest to change, it seems to have opted for the most modern formula, including photographs on its cover and a minimalist title. I realize that arriving at broadly applicable conclusions regarding the interwar lives of the three magazines is impossible. I do think that this anecdotal browsing does bring out a few important points. Insight into material for girl readers and how the gender divide is sometimes effaced, through funny animal comics, for instance, but also through adventure and fairy tale stories. The wealth of female comics protagonists in magazines for girls is in itself striking, even if it was sometimes accompanied by a stronger moralizing tone than in the stories with boy protagonists. The porosity and cross-pollination of popular media, ranging from the sheer expanse and interconnectedness of popular publishing to the influence of cinema. In all the magazines in general, moving pictures and printed image texts are in symbiosis at this point. The 1920s is often considered as a period when the comic as we know it appeared with its trademark word balloons in Europe. But perhaps it's the increasing dominance of the image and image culture that is more important and fascinating, blurring the boundaries between illustrated stories and comics and other forms of popular media. And I thank you for your attention and look forward to your comments and suggestions.